Not sure how to start, so here we go. There's a whole world of things that have happened around this summit. That diplomatic subtleties, if you're paying attention, if you know a little bit of history, if you have any idea outside of the mainstream, then this summit was so much bigger than anyone wants to give credit to. And of course, the mainstream media isn't. But I don't think even those on the right see the depth. You have to go back a little ways here. And that's what we're going to do. Just please bear with me. I promise it is worth your time. And I appreciate your time today. So let's just get right to it. This is the press conference, and we're going to do some pauses to bring in some evidence.
The President of the United States of America and the President of the Russian Federation.
Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, our negotiations have been held in a constructive atmosphere of mutual respect. We have very thorough negotiations that were quite useful. I would like to thank once again my American counterpart for the proposal to travel out here to Alaska. It only makes sense that we've met here because our countries, though separated by the oceans, are close neighbors. So when we've met, when I came out of the plane and I've said, "Good afternoon, dear neighbor. Very good to see you. In good health and to see you alive." I think that is very neighborly.
In good health and to see you alive. Is this the first time that President Putin has shown respect or pointed out the fact that our president is still alive? A lot of other world leaders don't, but he certainly does, and he's done multiple times.
Я, пользуясь случаем, хочу поздравить его с избранием на пост президента Соединенных Штатов Америки. Я уже говорил, что мы будем работать с любым главой государства, которому окажет доверие американский народ. Так будет действительно и на практике. Вы знаете, можно тоже как угодно к нему относиться, ведь все изначально в первой его итерации президентской говорили, что он бизнесмен в основном, и он мало чего там понимает в политике, ошибок может наделать. Ну, во-первых, я вам могу сказать, его поведение в момент покушения на его жизнь, я не знаю, но на меня произвело это впечатление. Он мужественный человек оказался. И дело не только в поднятой руке и в призыве бороться за их общие идеалы. Дело не только в этом. Хотя это, конечно, знаете, на драйве, на таком, все как бы... Человек проявляет себя в условиях, в экстраординарных условиях. Вот здесь человек проявляет себя, и он себя проявил, на мой взгляд, очень правильным образом, мужественно, как мужчина. Уровень доверия.
A very courageous man. Very interesting. And there's other instances of Putin bringing this up as well. A courageous man. He clearly has his respect. And he's also still worried about him. So am I.
Вы знаете, меня, думаю, что у вас тоже больше всего как бы поразило даже не то, что в отношении Трампа применялись абсолютно не цивилизованные средства борьбы. Абсолютно цивилизованные. Но вплоть до попытки убийства, причем неоднократного. Кстати говоря, на мой взгляд, и сейчас он не в безопасности. Ну, к сожалению, в истории Соединенных... Да, здесь что? В истории Соединенных Штатов были всякие разные случаи. Поэтому, я думаю, что он человек умный, уже надеюсь, осторожный, понимаете. Поразило, что в ходе нападок на него, в ходе борьбы с ним, не только его самого подвергали унизительным, необоснованным процедурам судебным, обвинениям и так далее, но осуществляли нападки на членов его семьи, на детей. У нас бандиты так не делают. Когда группировки криминальные между собой борются, женщин и детей не трогают, оставляют их в покое, борются там мужики между собой. А эти трогали, понимаете? Но это настолько омерзительно, что лишний раз подчеркивает все падение сегодняшней американской политической системы. Тем не менее, страна великая, безусловно. Мы готовы к диалогу с Соединенными Штатами, в том числе и с будущей администрацией. Все, спасибо большое. Всего хорошего.
Once again, pointing out his concern that he still isn't safe, that they went after his kids, his wife, his family, besides the physical assassination attempt on his life. So you have a respect from President Putin for President Trump. This isn't a love affair. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that you have a respect. And you have a reciprocal respect. And that reciprocal respect is because there aren't too many countries who haven't lied to the president. Russia is actually one of them, if you think about it. And when you have Putin going up there and saying that there would be no war, in Ukraine if President Trump was still the president from 2020 to 2024. This is huge. Let's play that.
Russia and the US. And in the end, I would like to add one more thing. I'd like to remind you that in 2022, during the last contact with the previous administration, I tried to convince my previous American colleague that the situation should not be brought to the point of no return when it would come to hostilities. And I said it quite directly back then that it's a big mistake. Today, when President Trump saying that if he was the president back then, there will be no war. And I'm quite sure that it would indeed be so. I can confirm that. I think that overall, me and President Trump have built a very good, businesslike, and trustworthy contact.
Businesslike and trustworthy contact, because they have a mutual trust and respect for one another. This is something that is lacking in a lot of international relations, and I think this is phenomenal. And there's another reason we're going to get into also. But how did CNN cover this? Well, remarkably, CNN wasn't as fair as you'd think. That said, let's just hear it.
We're just hours away from the Trump-Putin summit. The two leaders are both right now preparing to fly to Alaska, where they will meet one-on-one. This will be the first in-person meeting of these two leaders in years. President Trump today said that he expects this meeting with Putin will be productive.
I believe now he's convinced that he's going to make a deal. He's going to make a deal. I think he's going to, and we're going to find out. I'm going to know very quickly.
And of course, just a few minutes later, President Trump conceded that there's a 25% chance in his mind this meeting is a failure. As for Putin, he's working the flattery angle with President Trump.
The current American administration, which as everyone knows, is making, in my opinion, quite energetic and sincere efforts to stop the hostilities, stop the crisis, and reach agreements that are of interest to all parties involved in this conflict.
Tesla's stock has crashed.
Praising Trump has definitely worked in the past. Remember, when the two men met in 2018, they stood side by side as President Trump sided with Vladimir Putin over U.S. intelligence agencies about Russian interference in the 2016 election.
Sided with Putin over U.S. intelligence agencies when it came to Russian meddling in the election. Okay, let's just check that out real quick.
President Trump, you first. Just now, President Putin denied having anything to do with the election interference in 2016. Every U.S. intelligence agency has concluded that Russia did. My first question for you, sir, is who do you believe? My second question is, would you now, with the whole world watching, tell President Putin, would you denounce what happened in 2016, and would you warn him to never do it again?
So let me just say that we have two thoughts. You have groups that are wondering why the FBI never took the server. Haven't they taken the server? Why was the FBI told to leave the office of the Democratic National Committee? I've been wondering that. I've been asking that for months and months, and I've been tweeting it out and calling it out on social media. Where is the server? I want to know, where is the server, and what is the server saying? With that being said, all I can do is ask the question. My people came to me, Dan Coates came to me, and some others. They said they think it's Russia. I have President Putin. He just said it's not Russia. I will say this. I don't see any reason why it would be, but I really do want to see the server. But I have confidence in both parties. I really believe that this will probably go on for a while, but I don't think it can go on without finding out what happened to the server. What happened to the servers of the Pakistani gentlemen that worked on the DNC? Where are those servers? They're missing. Where are they? What happened to Hillary Clinton's emails? 33,000 emails gone, just gone. I think in Russia they wouldn't be gone so easily. I think it's a disgrace that we can't get Hillary Clinton's 33,000 emails. So I have great confidence in my intelligence people, but I will tell you that President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today.
Strong and powerful in his denial because, as we now know, it was all a hoax.
The implications of this are far-reaching and have to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. It has to do with an outgoing president taking action to manufacture intelligence, to undermine and usurp the will of the American people in that election, and launch what would be a years-long coup against the incoming President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Director Gabbard, you referenced the past intelligence reports and assessments on this, including that 2017 one that was signed off, as Ed noted, by every Republican on the Senate Intelligence Community, including the acting chair of the time, now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said in a statement that they did not find any evidence of Russian collusion, but they did find, however, is very troubling, and they found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling. One, are you saying that he's wrong in that statement that he made then? And secondly, what would you say to people who believe that you're only releasing these documents now to improve your standing with the president after he said that your intelligence assessments were wrong?
The evidence and the intelligence that has been declassified and released is irrefutable. I'm going to let Caroline speak to Secretary Rubio.
I'll speak to both questions. First, on Secretary Rubio, he put out a statement in 2020 following that Senate Intelligence Committee report, and he said what they found is troubling. We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling, which the Director of National Intelligence just confirmed for all of you, that Russia was trying to sow distrust and chaos. But what's the outrage in this, that Secretary Rubio did not say at the time, the Democrats were saying at the time, is the fact that the intelligence community was concocting this narrative that the president colluded with the Russians.
So what effect would that, colluding with the Russians, those allegations, which, again, turned out to be completely false, just queuing up here. So clearly that had an effect on your international relations. And this is where we're going to start to get into a couple of things. Because the Russiagate hoax was, one, to interfere with Trump, and two, to throw shade against to hide Burisma, Biden's affiliations with Ukraine, the entire Ukraine situation going back well past 2014 in the Maidan coup. So, what effect did those have? President Trump spoke to that in the press conference with Vladimir Putin.
We look forward to that. We look forward to dealing. We're going to try and get this over with. We really made some great progress today. I've always had a fantastic relationship with President Putin, with Vladimir. We had many tough meetings, good meetings. We were interfered with by the Russia hoax. It made it a little bit tougher to deal with, but he understood it. I think he's probably seen things like that during the course of his career. He's seen it all, but we had to put up with the Russia hoax. He knew it was a hoax, and I knew it was a hoax, but what was done was very criminal. But it made it harder for us to deal as a country in terms of the business and all of the things that we'd like to have dealt with. But
right there, it made it more difficult. Of course it made it more difficult, and that was part of the deal there, too, to interfere with Russia, because part of the great game going against Russia. I also find it interesting that when we get to the end here, when we get to the end of this, and we're just going to run this for the next minute 30 of President Trump finishing the speech and then President Putin. Let's just do that, and then we'll give commentary.
we'll have a good chance when this is over. So just to put it very quickly, I'm going to start making a few phone calls and tell them what happened. But we had an extremely productive meeting, and many points were agreed to. There are just a very few that are left. Some are not that significant. One is probably the most significant, but we have a very good chance of getting there. We didn't get there, but we have a very good chance of getting there. I would like to thank President Putin and his entire team, who I know in many cases, other than that, whose faces I get to see all the time in the newspapers. You're almost as famous as the boss, but especially this one right over here. But we had some good meetings over the years, right? Good, productive meetings over the years, and we hope to have that in the future. But let's do the most productive one right now. We're going to stop really 5, 6, 7,000, thousands of people a week from being killed, and President Putin wants to see that as much as I do. So, again, Mr. President, I'd like to thank you very much, and we'll speak to you very soon and probably see you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but I could see it possibly happening. Thank you very much, Vladimir. And thank you all. Thank you again very soon. Thank you very much, Vladimir.
Next time in Moscow.
Oh, that's an interesting one. I don't know. I'll get a little heat on that one, but...
Notice, next time in Moscow, and the president seems open to it. Isn't it curious that it's your adversary who invites you to their capital? Notice where he hasn't been invited? I would bet you $100 that if you went to the Secret Service today and asked which capital city would you feel the president is at less risk in, Moscow or Kyiv, they would tell you Moscow. I don't think he trusts Kyiv. You can see by the way he treats Ukraine that he doesn't trust them, and nor should he. They've tried to kill him a couple times. I'm just coming out and saying it because I think it's fact. And I'm now going to present to you a piece of evidence that does not get any play. It'll take a couple of seconds to get to it, but it's worth it.
Of course, now it's very important to understand the reaction of the world, the reaction of not just Democratic Party, Republicans Party, but of the closest allies of the United States of America. Of course, we're going to see statements and support for Trump and many other different words. But when talking about Ukraine, the situation with this country is completely different. Because we are usually discuss the situation in Ukraine, and we know a lot about the line of combat contact, about the statements of different people. On official lines, Zelensky president, of course, condemned that violence in the United States of America, but most important is the reaction of the soldiers and the generals and brigades along the line of combat contact. And for these purposes, we'll just discuss the statement that was published by 79th Air Mobile Brigade. We usually discuss their statements, not like something like an evidence or something that we need to discuss as let's say kind of a truth or something like this. We're just discussing the situation. For example, it's like a small example of the relations of the Ukrainian soldiers who are currently located on the line of combat contact to the situation with Donald Trump. This statement, as you can see, posted is written in Russian, but I will try to translate to you. And the forces official Telegram channel, for example, of 79th Brigade is saying that the Ukrainian special forces are great. That it's even impossible to believe that Ukrainian special forces are able to conduct something like this. Of course, it's not like to kill some Russian blogger or to destroy some Russian Crimean bridge. It's something bigger. And of course, there was mistakes. Obviously, the Ukrainian special forces intelligence directorate should have found a better sniper. Obviously, they will find, and obviously, the mission of special forces of Ukraine will be completed, and Trump will not be allowed to become a president, because the friends of Ukraine, the real friends of Ukraine, will not allow this, and more money, more weapon will continue sending and coming to the territory of Ukraine. So summarizing everything, I read a lot of.
Now, I'm one of the first to say, pissed off soldiers, they're going to post things. Right. I mean, seriously. You're going to that's a one-off, right? Okay. Well, this is from July 14th, 2024. This is the day after whatever happened in Butler, Pennsylvania happened. Good luck trying to find some information about the young man from Butler, by the way. Good luck. It's incredibly difficult to find anything. So there's this one-off. You got this one-off, Pat. That means nothing. It means nothing. I know. I'm with you. It's a one-off. It's a one-off. But then there's the second guy. The second guy.
CBS News has learned that Mr. Ruth, that you heard Joan talking about there right outside where this all played out, is a strong supporter of Ukraine. He even traveled there to recruit firefighters to help Ukraine defend itself against Russia. In fact, look at these. These are images of
firefighters. I found this such a curious video, and I'll hope that if you're still with me, I really appreciate it. And I really hope that you'll watch this and pay very close attention to the wording used throughout this. And then we're going to meet the gentleman himself.
Of Ruth at a rally that he organized in Kyiv. CBS News senior foreign correspondent Holly Williams was in contact with Ruth for more than a year. Watch.
Hey there, Reed. When I woke up this morning in London to the news that Ryan Ruth was the suspect in an alleged assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump, I was stunned to recognize the name because I had been in touch with Ryan Ruth for over a year in the early stages of the war in Ukraine. Like thousands of other international volunteers, he apparently went to Ukraine to help. I do not believe he was fighting himself, but he had put up signs in Kyiv, Ukraine's capital, offering to help other foreigners find places in Ukrainian battalions. And that's how I initially came across him. I spoke with him, I think, once on the phone and texted frequently, and he put me in touch with several foreign fighters. He seemed very genuine and passionate about
that very video they're using as B-roll. We're going to watch a couple seconds of it after this. Again, pay attention to the words she's using, and then we'll listen to him, and we'll see what the words match.
supporting Ukraine. He mentioned plans to bring in thousands of Afghan and Syrian fighters, which I took, frankly, with a grain of salt. In an interview with the news website Semaphore, he claimed he'd been unable to get visas for Afghan fighters, but we don't know if he was actually in touch with any Ukrainian officials at all. Now, I've met American volunteers everywhere from Syria to Ukraine. Some are experienced soldiers and very clear about the dangers they're facing. Others seem less well informed, and their motivations can at times be confused. And to be honest, Ryan Ruth did seem at times to be fairly naive. At one point, he sent me an audio track of a song he'd apparently recorded about the carnage caused by the war in Ukraine. In November of last year, he told me he was back in the US in Hawaii, and that was the last time I heard from him.
Kind of naive. Just kind of naive. He's trying to get some firefighters, you know. Did you hear her slip in there that he can get you into a battalion? Yeah, but he's naive. I mean, and the Ukrainians, they totally disavow this guy. They know nothing about him. Let's meet him for a couple seconds, and let's see if he sounds and looks as naive.
The Ukrainian government on Monday denied any links to this American accused of trying to assassinate former U.S. President Donald Trump. Kyiv's comments came after it emerged that the reported suspect, Ryan Ruth, had traveled to the country in hopes of volunteering to help Ukraine fight back against Russia's invasion.
To me, a lot of the other conflicts are gray, but this conflict is definitely black and white. This is about good versus evil.
In this 2022 interview, Ruth told Newsweek Romania he'd initially hoped to fight, but was rejected from combat because of his age and his lack of military experience.
So he went there to fight, but he was rejected. But he went there to just hold up some signs. I mean, that's what what's-her-face said, right? I mean, that's what he's there for. He's just so naive. Let's just keep going here. Let's see.
And he said he shifted his goals and was instead recruiting others to take up arms.
If you want to fight, come here and see me, and I'll put you in a unit so you can go fight.
Put you in a unit so you can go fight. If you're so naive and you have no association with anything, how can you recruit somebody from overseas, put them in a unit, and have them go fight unless you have connections? This guy is also very interesting. So what is the point of this, of me saying this? Who do you trust if you're Donald Trump? In all seriousness, the Ukrainians who lie to you constantly, a deep state that tried to completely dog you financially, criminally, and then they tried to kill you. And you can't tell me they didn't, because they, at one point, clearly used a Ukrainian cutout. And the first time it happened, who knows? In all seriousness, take a look at that. Very curious how that completely sanitized. Completely. The media is still pushing Russiagate, even though you have complete 100% evidence of it being a hoax. And soon to be questioning of Hillary Clinton, Senator Schiff. So who do you trust? So in this meeting that happens today with the president of Ukraine, who I guarantee shows up today in a suit and tie and clean shaven and shows the respect due to the president of the United States. I guarantee it. I find it really curious that after all this time, after everything that's happened from 2015 to 2025, the media, the deep state, everyone has pushed these two men together. And if you look at their interaction, Bill O'Reilly came out the other day on his program and said, do you know that when they're alone together, Putin speaks English to him, doesn't use the translator. He respects him. I think he respects Putin because Putin's a tough guy who will do what he says and says what he does. And he hasn't bullshitted him. Go back to the emergency phone call right after the Ukrainian drones attacked the strategic bombers of Russia. That was an unscheduled phone call. I did a video about that. An unscheduled phone call between world leaders like that is not something to be taken lightly. That is, get him on the horn, and I need to know what he knew now. I think there's a trust factor. I really do. And I think that they've been forced into it, which is the exact opposite of everything they've tried to do for a decade, which is incredible. Everything they tried to do worked 180 degrees opposite. And frankly, I think for the benefit of the world. The Lord works in mysterious ways. And I'm telling you, only He could make what's happening between these two men happen. Again, today, when he meets Zelensky, who I guarantee you, I will put money, shows up in a suit and tie and clean shaven and showing deference and respect to the President of the United States. Because I think those last pieces of information I gave you, I think Trump knows them too. That's it. If you like, hope you do, subscribe, please do, and I appreciate you.